You have learned a lot about hooks. Now let's bring everything you have learned together and build a real component, like the kind of component you see in a real application. So for this demo, we're going to consume this REST API. You probably know about this, JSON placeholder.typicode.com. This is a fake REST API. It has various endpoints for getting a list of posts, comments, and so on. For this demo, we're going to consume the list of users. So this returns an array of user objects. Every user object has these properties. So in the hooks folder, let's add a new file, users.jsx. We're going to generate a functional component. Beautiful. Now, in this component, we should make an API call to JSON placeholder. For that, I'm going to use Axios. So let's open up the terminal and install Axios. All right, Axios is installed successfully. Beautiful. Now, let's import it on the top. Import Axios from Axios. Now, in the class component, we should make an API call in the component.mount method. That is when our component is mounted in the DOM. In functional components, we don't have that method. Instead, we use the effect hook. So here we call use effect and pass a function. Inside this function, we're going to call Axios and pass the address of our API endpoint. So I'm going to bring that from our browser. There you go. Now, this returns a promise. I prefer to await it. I don't want to call the then method. That's really ugly. So we await this promise and get the result. Now, result.data returns the array of user objects that we get from the server. We should store this array in the state of this component. So here we need to use the state hook, use state. We give our array of users an initial value, in this case, an empty array. As you know, this returns an array with 2 items. So let's destructure it over here. The first item is our state variable. Let's call it users. And the second item is a function to update this state variable, set users. Now, over here, we're going to call set users and give it result.data. Now, there is a tiny problem here. Because we have used await here, we have to decorate this function with async, but React does not allow this. So the function that we pass to the effect hook has to be a regular function. To solve this problem, we can encapsulate these 2 lines inside an async function. So async function, let's call it get users. Now we move these 2 lines over here. So inside this callback function, we are defining another function, okay? But this function is not going to get called automatically. We have to explicitly call it. So get users. Now, I'm not going to await this because if I do this, then I have to decorate this function with the async keyword. We don't want to do this. So we simply call it. Now, at some point, the promise that is returned from the Axios function is going to get resolved. So the control will move here. The set users function will set our state variable. This will cause our component to re-render. So let's render the list of users over here. We add an unordered list. Here we're going to map users. We map each user to a list item. Now, inside this list item, we're going to render user.name. And also, we should assign a key to this list item. We're going to use user.id. Save the changes. Now, let's go to our app component and render our users component. Let's test our application. So, localhost port 3001, and here's the list of users retrieved from the server.